Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the Carriage Fight of the Future sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
I like the energy. However, because we're live, and we talked about this, like, how are we going to talk about this? What if it's settled today, which it seems like it's a likelihood because of Monday Night Football game with Aaron Rodgers. So immediately at the top of the show, your Carriage Fight of the future becomes the Carriage Fight of the past. However, you are looking in a macro sense. If I know you, Eben Novy-Williams, we're not going literal here. You're going macro sense, cable carrier against sort of against the provider of the content in Disney and ESPN. So this one's Charter Disney. This has been going on. What's it been now? Like a week? I'm trying to think.
Week and a half at this point. It was
all right. And by
Saturday,
the way,
so 10 days.
You've had college football starting, NFL starting, a big one. Aaron Rodgers. Even so, let's go big picture. Let's pretend as we're reading here in the air that there is a solution, a settlement, an agreement, a détente, whatever you want to call it, between Charter and Disney. You, sir, have spent a good portion of the morning, and I'm doing a million things, so I had one ear on you talking to Kurt Bodenhausen. It was something about you were marrying the writer's strike and content creation and cable companies and streaming companies and not really going to pay. I know you were talking about that world. And I sort of jumped in a little bit and say, I hear that in a world that this is going to be less valuable and owners better wise up, that things are going to change, even A-list properties. So tell me how I did with one ear to you guys in conversation and the other doing what I was supposed to be doing.
You did well. I wish we had 4 hours to discuss this, Scott, because I think this is, in my opinion, this Charter ESPN fight, whether it gets resolved on Monday or not, is one of the biggest stories that we've had in this industry in the past year. And there's been so much talk about the way the cable consumption, cable bundle is dying and what that means for the cable companies, what it means for the broadband companies, what it means for rights holders like sports teams. I said this is the carriage fight of the future. And I mean that, you're right, in a macro sense, because for so long, all of the carriage fights we used to see happened between two companies, whether it was ESPN and Charter or ESPN and Time Warner, whatever it was, two groups that had the same interest in mind in preserving the cable bundle business as it was. And this is the first in which we don't really have that. ESPN obviously wants the cable bundle to continue. It's been massively profitable for them. It will continue to be as they try to figure out the digital streaming stuff. But Charter, a company that is going to and knows its future is in internet, doesn't really feel the same way about the cable bundle.
All they really want is they just want to be the pipes into your home. That's it. They and whether, even if you're going to use Fubo, Sling, whatever it is you may be, they just want you to utilize their internet to get that stuff.
And we saw this, right? Part of the messaging around this from Charter was trying to push some of its customers to buying YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Again, because they knew that if you do that, you have Charter internet, you're going to need their broadband to do it. And this feels like it's the future here. As the cable bundle disappears, as the big cable companies realize that they are fighting for a model that is going to be gone, and whether that's 2 years from now or 10 years from now, whatever that looks like, this is going to be the future for groups like ESPN. It's going to be carriage fights with companies, whether it's them or whether it's whoever else it is, that don't have the same interests in mind, same business interests in mind as they do. And that, I think, is going to be a hard thing for sports to square. And it does make me wonder how we think about media rights, their valuations, and because of that, how we think about sports team valuations as well.
My favorite carriage dispute, of course, and I talk about it all the time, was Time Warner MSG during Linsanity. Jeremy Lin comes in, they start winning, he's hitting big shots, and all of a sudden everybody from the mayor on down has to get involved because New York wants to see its Linsanity. Couldn't miss it. And by the way, when you talk about sort of big moments in sports business history, that was one of them. That Jeremy Lin single-handedly helped to solve that dispute. Both sides just couldn't go on that way. And for this, we're talking NFL and Aaron Rodgers. That could be the impetus to get that thing solved. But I hear your point. You're looking forward at a changing business model. And when you're dealing with some of these other companies, Disney's core business is the sports and the rights, right? ESPN I'm talking about. Obviously, Disney is theme parks. We know that. But when you talk about these streaming companies, This we're talking pimple on the pimple. They're just not going to pay that much attention. Might not be worth the headache. I mean, that's one of the things you were talking about earlier.
And as the revenue model, this great dual income revenue stream.
The advertising
ESPN,
and the sub fees.
Advertising and the sub fees. As that starts to go away,
which it
really
has.
changes. Which it is. It really changes. Obviously, the income mechanism for ESPN, and therefore changes ESPN's capacity to keep paying for high-priced rights fees that in almost every sport have just gone up in a very, very steep way over the past few years. And now that we have streaming companies coming in, it's clear in my conversations with stuff that executives have said publicly, I think a lot of sports team owners and sports executives believe that if ESPN's buying capacity dwindles, if Turner's buying capacity dwindles, that they have a whole new class of deeper pocketed companies like your Apples and like your Amazons and maybe your Netflixes that are going to come in and pick up the slack and maybe pay more. And I've been reading a lot and listening to a lot over the past few days about how that might not be true, right? And I do believe that if the thinking is that at some point all of these rights are going to stop being purchased by big cable companies and are going to be instead be purchased by huge tech companies, but they're going to continue to go up in value. I do think there are some potential cracks to that theory that, again, would really scare me if I was an owner in maybe any sport outside of the NFL and maybe outside the NBA.
Is Mark Zuckerberg not one of those? I mean, Facebook was supposed to be one of these, live right bidders, and they dabbled a little bit. I believe the first baseball game was Mets and Phillies, and that's because our friend Rob Shaw was a Mets fan, and that's what he wanted first over at Meta. But clearly, Mark Zuckerberg has made it abundantly clear to those inside the company and obviously the sports leagues as well, we're not paying for live rights. It's just not our business. Not what we're going to do. What am I to make then of Apple and MLS? What, dip the toe in the water? You can get a chance to get in and get an entire league and some shoulder programming. What am I to make of that in terms of what you were saying, that they will not be significant bidders in the world of live sports?
I think we're in this kind of weird world right now where there is an overlap right now of cable networks and streaming companies looking for rights, right? And if you are an Apple and you want to carve out something meaningful and new and try something out, you do need to spend for it right now.
Yeah, but what about if I have cash on hand? Why don't I just do the old, I'm just going to buy the whole thing? Why rent when I can buy, right? Don't lease the car, buy it.
You can also do that. The Thursday night deal that Amazon did was significantly bigger than the Thursday night deal that Fox had previously to that, right? So Amazon did pay up for Thursday Night Football more than the TV network that had it prior was paying. But again, I think moving forward, you mentioned the writer strike. The point I was trying to make in the office about the writer strike is that there's a lot about the writer strike that is AI related, obviously. There's a whole other thread to it about the economics and the way they're changing for creatives and rights holders now that Amazon and Netflix and Apple are getting into the production studio game. And those companies have drastically shifted what the expectation is for actors to get paid, for writers to get paid, for directors to get paid, et cetera. And I do think that is a potential warning sign for sports in some ways. That, again, because if you're Amazon, the TV studio part of your business is so small, it's so insignificant. You're not relying on this to be the end-all, be-all of your business. It totally changes the negotiating and the leverage position that these companies have. And again, getting into sports would be the same way. For Amazon it's a web services company, it's an advertising company, it's a little bit of an e-commerce and a retail company, but the Prime Video is not a huge part of the Amazon business.
Did you say Amazon's a little bit of an e-com?
A bit of an e-com business, yeah. Is the e-com business even profitable? I don't even know that it is.
I don't know. It is. I know the Soshnicks are doing all they can to make sure it is.
100%, yeah. And I know Amazon is subsidizing that to a large degree. But the point I'm trying to make, I think, is that we have seen, at least in some other industries, other parts of the entertainment industry, what happens when your big companies do dive into that world. And I don't think that the vision that a lot of sports team owners have right now for what that looks like in their world matches what we've seen in these other industries.
I think we need a break at this moment of the show to say, Eben, I think the hair looks good today.
Took the hat off. Yeah,
the hair looks good today. And you got the background greasy of water, and you had a snow thing before. You might have to use this now as a video promotional clip because it wouldn't make sense for anybody just listening. But
my hair and makeup guy did a good job.
He did an excellent job today. Just bike to work and take the hat off, and that's what it looks like. Excellent job. All right, well, let's see. They don't have, as of this minute of taping, murmurs rumblings, whispers of a settlement between Charter and Disney. But even if they do, we're saying this ain't over yet.
Yeah, I think this is a moment we may look back on and realize that things are starting to change, and this was the first, or one of the first cracks. Yeah.
Can I also say the Coco Gauff U.S. Open Championship would be a moment where we look back and say things are starting to change, I would say significantly in terms of the landscape of women's tennis. As of right now, they're not changing on the men's side. It's like, okay, Djokovic, check. But Coco Gauff winning, I mean, she, as Kurt Badenhausen wrote, prior to the match, she was on the precipice of sort of endorsement greatness.
Yeah.
I mean, New Balance, great for them that there she is, front and center. But a new face of women's tennis in Coco. What is she, 19 years old?
19 years old, yeah.
19, winning the U.S. Open, American, Cha and Ching.
Agreed. Yeah, she's the youngest either U.S. Open or American Grand Slam winner since Serena Williams, I think. So following in her idol's footsteps already.
Well, yeah, exactly.
There was so much pressure put on Coco when she was younger, when she made her tour debut a number of years ago. And in tennis, Scott, that they're phenoms at 16 that never win a Grand Slam, never went up to the hype. You forget about them by the time they turn 20. She, at least in her young career so far, is living up to all of the hype. Wins the U.S. Open, as you said, at 19. She has a big endorsement profile. She's very charismatic. She's honest and open in interviews in a way that I think both fans and potential corporate partners are going to like. And she's coming into women's tennis at a time when pay equality is not 100% there, but it's getting close, and there's a plan to get the women's and men tours to equal pay, certainly before the end of Coco's career. So it's a good time to be an up-and-coming young female tennis star, and Coco is checking all of those boxes right now. You and I were following the Open, and the one thing that we both talked about was how it felt more premium this year. There was a lot of hype about all of the box, the liquor, and we'll see what happens there. There may be some feathers ruffled, but it's a premium experience, right? And our friends at Elevate helped them out over there sell that. So you could feel it, but premium became more premium. And then also on the player side, I found it very interesting, and I agree with this strategy. I understand that for years there was a pendulum swinging towards helping the lower-ranked players make more money if you won a round or two. This year, the money went back to the stars. A little more money went. This is a star-driven event. This is New York, night matches. You better have stars, big names playing. I mean, now, think about Coco Gauff for the next, how happy is the USTA that you can pencil in Coco Gauff on the Friday, Saturday night match for the first week of the Open and know there is your major draw. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. That is what you have. Shelton as well now is getting to the point, did not win. But you're getting to the point now where people will like to see him play a night match at the U.S. Open, American players. That is a big deal. And I think they finally recognize, I see you need to help out and support the players on just making it through the earlier rounds. But it's stars, baby. They want to see Djokovic at the end. That's just like the NCAA tournament. Everybody loves the upsets in the first two rounds. Yeah. You do not want the little school of the directional sighting, in the Final Four. That is not what networks want. That, for the most part, it's not what people want either. They want to see the big brands. That's right. And it's funny that it's interesting to me at least that over the past few years, as you said, the U.S. Open, the USTA has boosted the overall prize pool by doing it by boosting primarily the lower ranks. So if you lose in the first round, lose in the second round, the pay jump has been pretty significant at the U.S. Open over the past few years. The pay jump for the winner has been less significant. That changed, as you said, this year, and it comes at a time when golf learned this lesson, I think, the very hard way. How valuable your stars are relative to the live way. The live way. And the push against the PGA Tour for so long was that the small subset of stars that were driving so much of the viewership, so much of the money, were not sharing in that economics in the same way. And I think you can make the same argument for tennis. And I know you and I talked about Novak last week, how he is very, very vociferously making the opposite argument. But I do think as global sports begin to come a little bit more on shaky ground. Just look at Messi. Just look at Messi. Messi is another perfect example. You do need to pay the stars the way that they are appropriately earning. And by the way, get creative doing it. Get creative doing it, and if you don't, you run the risk of something happening by someone popping in with a lot of money and disrupting your entire business. So part of this, I think, for the USTA was getting the winner's purse back to where it was before COVID, which they did take a little out of the winner's purse to kind of distribute it down. But I would be imagined, and I think they would be crazy not to, I would think everyone in tennis is also thinking about, let's make sure that our stars are happy. And figure out so that if someone comes in and decides, hey, we want to make a 10-star tennis tour that's going to go around and only be the premium names, that they're not as susceptible to that.
You know what would be really cool? Now, we can't just make up marketing campaigns and we can't just make stuff up.
Why not?
But
we can make stuff up.
No, we can't. You know what would be really cool, though? Be a great thread, a great storyline. It would have been really great if at some time in her past, Coco Gauff had been to the U.S. Open on, let's say, like Kids Day. And maybe if cameras were rolling and caught her dancing in the crowd, and then to compare and contrast with, like, years later, there she is as a U.S. Open champion. That, I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame she never got the chance to go to Flushing Meadow and dance around on Kids Day, because, that would just be some great video that if anybody had it, they could, maybe share it and then share it again and again and again and again. After I'd seen it and I'm starting to be tired of it, people could share it again after she won, if that happened. If only she had had that opportunity.
Sensing the sarcasm there. I saw this clip of Coco dancing at Kids Day a decade ago more than I think I saw clips of her winning the U.S. Open this year. Everybody seemed to latch on to this little 10-second clip of her dancing at the Open. It's definitely good. It's compelling. I know she was asked about it after she won the championship as well. But I'm with you. Yeah, the just parroting of everybody else's little social posts, it gets overwhelming at times.
Overwhelming. It gets annoying. All right. Anyway, week 1 of the NFL. All right, we still got Aaron Rodgers in a big Monday night game. Gee, I wonder if that's going to do good numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe, if they fare as poorly as the other New York team in week 1 by halftime, that sound could be everybody shutting off the TVs.
Yeah.
But no, here we go. Do you feel just the hype machine, the printing press? I think Gutenberg should have had a money printing press. He would have called it the NFL. You just feel like, here we go. Nothing slows this league down.
Yeah, it feels like deja vu. Every year when the NFL kicks off, I think we talk about the strength of its business, the way a lot of the indicators are going up, and it has, largely by the way it has structured its business and by making smart moves, insulated itself from a lot of the things that we talk about that would maybe scare me if I was an owner in another league. The whole RSN collapse is something
broadcast TV, my friend.
NFL owners do not need to worry about.
Yep.
And at least right now, and I'm not saying longer term, but as the cable bundle diminishes, NFL owners are also, at least for the next decade, if they want to be, largely insulated from that as well. They have structured this business. You and I talked about highlights and the way in which different leagues approached highlights. For a long time, the NFL was criticized, was panned for the fact that they were protecting their highlights on social media way more than other leagues. I think that's starting to look like a fantastic decision. There's so much about the way the NFL has structured its business, being more conservative, not needing to jump into the hot new thing, that has served it well in the past. And I agree with you. I think that 2023 season, maybe even more so than in past ones, just shows how strong the NFL's business is and how protected it is from a lot of the fault lines that we are seeing in other parts of our industry.
Yeah, Jeff Miller, executive of the NFL, wrote a guest op-ed for us last week, and just parroting Rodgers' line. We're about breadth and scale, and they have never changed that, and they have been blessed because of that they can dabble in different ways. And you talked earlier in the Charter Disney dispute, Charter's encouraging its customers, go get YouTube TV. Right? Go get something else, another way to watch. We'll be your pipe. We're happy to have it. You need our broadband. But if you get YouTube, guess what? You know what else is there? Something that used to be on DirecTV.
Yeah.
So by the way, got plenty of NFL programming over here for you if you want to watch that. So, man, outside of COVID and league shutting down, and I rack my brain for, if I was an NFL owner, what would I be scared of? What am I looking at? What is going to make people turn away? I don't believe it's violence. I don't believe it's head drama. I don't believe it's that. I don't believe a gambling scandal, because people when your customers are addicts, that's a really good place to be as a business.
Yeah.
A really comfortable place. So, let's rack our brains. I can't figure what to me should be scaring the bejesus out of NFL owners. I don't know what it is.
I think a couple years ago, I maybe would have said the NBA. I feel less strong about that position now. One of the big challenges, I think, to the NFL's business long term in terms of continuing this growth is that I am a little skeptical about its international
scale. Yeah, they haven't figured out the international play. They're making strides, but they haven't figured it out yet.
At some point, I do think you just become saturated in America. It pretty much is already, and they've done a really good job of continuing to grow despite that saturation. But if you're the English Premier League, if you look at India or China, or there's so many places around the world where you have so many fans already and so much commercial growth that you can possibly make, the NFL does not really have that. And it really has to push and by its own accord spend a lot of money to get these events on in Germany, get them on in England, really try to cultivate a fan base. It's not going to come naturally. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very expensive. That would be the one thing that would concern me.
But how can we make up that revenue through things like 32 equity, the private equity component of the league, where they can be investing? I mean, with owners like Josh Harris. Congratulations, Josh, on win number 1.
Yep.
But when new owners coming into the league, private equity type guys, and we'll talk about that another time in terms of real institutional capital coming into the NFL.
Yeah.
But just sort of changing the mindset of growing 32 equity, taking pieces of companies that are sports adjacent, NFL adjacent. I mean, if you're in business with the NFL, obviously, that's the juggernaut. There's a good chance you will succeed. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy on the investment side for the NFL. So I'd feel good there, even if it's not on the international scale in terms of like people watching games every weekend.
Yes, I think that's right, and I do think that there is some international growth the NFL can do. I think Mexico is a really interesting market for the NFL that has the similar time zones. The travel's not crazy. There's a lot of people in Mexico that love the NFL. I think there are some international. I think Canada also has some potential interesting opportunities as well. So I don't think that the international cupboard is fully barren for the NFL. But I think you're right. I think it's the other things that they're doing business wise to capitalize on their growth that gets them spread wider across the business landscape here in the U.S. And yeah, if they can tack on a couple things. We talked about this with Mark Gannis last week, Scott, and I thought about it more as this opening week went on. The Patrick Mahomes is a star, and there's great NFL players, but even without Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, who felt like they were these kind of orbits in themselves.
Iconic figures.
The NFL doesn't have the kind of star-driven capacity, and it also insulates them from problems that arise.
How many left tackles can you name? How many offensive linemen can you name? Offensive and defensive
Orlando
linemen.
Pace, all the guys I can name have retired.
Yeah, Tony Baselli, he's retired.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. How many can you name?
Very, very, very few. And even the star quarterbacks, I feel like you don't see all of them, in ads all the time. It's a very different structure. But again, I think it has served the NFL extremely well right now. And we can talk about at some point, maybe later, the role the NFL may play in college football. But the massive scale of college football's commercial opportunity right now, how much that's changed and accelerated, I think, in the past 6 months as everybody jumps to new conferences. And
can we play doubleheaders? Can we play an NCAA and college football, pro football doubleheader?
Why not? And
one crowd, 2 games?
As we talked with Joe Moglia last week, this idea of spinning college football off into its own commercial entity, if that were to happen, the NFL would be crazy, in my opinion, not to get involved with that in some capacity. So there, it does seem again like there's, even if we're looking just at the U.S., I do think that there's opportunity. America loves football, and I think there are opportunities for the NFL to continue to grow its business, at least in the short term here in the U.S.
You mentioned Canada. I assume, now I haven't kept up with my CFL news, so if this is old, I apologize because I just haven't kept up with it. But last I checked, which was a while ago, there were the Tiger Cats and the Tiger Cats. 2 words, 1 word. Right?
Is that true?
Yeah, I think there were 2 Tiger Cats. Like I said, if I'm mistaken, if this is totally wrong, Canada, I'm sorry.
Amazing.
I will not make a mistake when it comes to Mark Scheifele and the Jets and Austin Matthews, who's American, by the way, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, that won't happen. But Tiger Cats, I think there were 2 Tiger Cats. 2 words, 1 word. Now, knowing you, I think you are crazy enough. You're a Savannah Banana crazy enough to toy with a third hyphenated Tiger Cats. That's what I think you're gunning for.
Yes.
The Toronto Tiger Cats hyphen.
I'm down for that. I mean, we have the Auburn Tigers play the Clemson Tigers, and
Yes.
and they would both beat the crap out of the Princeton Tigers. There's
Especially the lightweight Tigers.
definitely the lightweight Tigers. Yeah, there's it happens in college sports. Tiger Cats just feels so specific. It's amazing that there would be multiple ones of that.
Oftentimes I Google while we're doing this, but I'm trying to get my CFL teams right now. So how about I'm going to speak for 2 seconds in transition. How about you? Wait. Oh, wait. Or was it 2 Rough Riders? Not Tiger Cats. Was it 2 Rough Riders? Hold on. There's Rough Riders, Elks, Blue Bombers. Oh, here's one. Oh, Hamilton Tiger Cats has a hyphen.
Okay.
Argonauts, Stampeders, Lions, Alouettes. Are there more?
Are
there more? I don't know. That's what I'm seeing right now in my quick check. I wish I knew more. But that's what I see. But I
see one Tiger Cats right now. And
all right, how about the Rough Riders? There was definitely a while ago. There was one name that had 2 teams had like the same name.
I see one Rough Riders and one Stampeders.
All right, so I think maybe one of these names must have been changed. One of the duplicate names must have been changed. Unless I'm completely making this up, and I don't think that's true. I think there was a 2 words, 1 word nickname for 2 teams.
The Sporticast is not a CFL podcast.
It is not a CFL podcast, but
abundantly clear in the past 2 minutes.
But we're going to hear from a lot of people on this, and that's fine. But I mean, again, unless I'm completely making this up, I really remember that there was the same nickname for 2 teams. One was 2 words, one was 1 word. Maybe Rough Riders.
Before we wrap, Scott, I actually want to go back to the topic that we had at the beginning because I want to get your thoughts on the NBA.
You were shooing Man United. We are not talking that Man United has not been sold yet.
Let's talk Man U later this week.
We have a lot of time, but go ahead.
The part of, I think, one of the big questions about this, not just the Charter ESPN fight, but more about kind of where sports media and rights fees are going, is a question about what it means for the entities that are in the market right now. And I've seen some talk in the past couple of days about how this Charter fight happening while the NBA is in the market looking for its new many $1 billion worth of TV deals is bad for the NBA. Do you put the NBA in that category like the NFL and college football of premium rights?
Yes, of course. Oh, the NFL is the NBA is without a doubt tier 1 sports property, without a doubt.
So if you're the NBA right now, are you worried at all about this from an immediate standpoint and what it might mean for the next 12 months of negotiating?
No, and this is why, because the ability to show the NFL and the NBA goes far beyond simply the game windows.
Yeah,
there is so much, as they say in the biz, which I hate, shoulder programming. And that's podcasts, that's radio, that's TV. There is and by the way, if you're showing the game, you get the highlights, and then for the debate shows, you can make up something silly like, "Oh, LeBron's not the greatest, and here's why," and then you spend a whole day talking about it on your myriad debate shows. That is the value of this it lives far beyond the game window. And there is so much time to fill that it is simply, for somebody like ESPN, TNT, which has picked differently, but it's just so important in terms of shoulder programming and filling time that they're in a world of their own in terms of tier 1 properties.
There's been talk about the NBA maybe tripling the value of its rights, 2x to 3x, something like that. And yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't think that this news, at least in the immediacy, changes that. I do wonder what it means for groups looking to negotiate smaller deals. The NWSL being one of them out of the market right
Jessica
now.
Berman was clear. This is a tough landscape.
It's a tough landscape, and I do think it got tougher for some groups in the past week, and we'll see obviously how long this. I do think the Monday night game, and next time we chat, Scott, we'll have an answer here. I do think this Monday night game is a very interesting deadline, and if there is not a resolution before this game, I think that says something a bit more dire about all this. And if there is a resolution before it, I think it's easier to make the argument that this was more of a traditional carriage rights dispute than maybe one that we might see moving forward.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you close the show. Let's see what happens as we tick-tock towards who are they playing? Who the Jets playing? Buffalo?
The Jets are playing the Bills, yeah. It's a
in
division
Buffalo.
Rivalry, 2 big charter markets.
In Buffalo? The Giants were home, so I assume they're in Buffalo.
I assume it's in Buffalo, yeah.
Right. All right. Well, like I told you, man, I was there not long ago, and Jared Allen's everywhere. Like, I mean, I've seen way more Jared Allen in Buffalo than Aaron Rodgers in New York or almost any player in any market that I have been to. You cannot go anywhere in Buffalo without seeing that guy. So.
Well, the game is in it's in East Rutherford. So,
oh, it's home?
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't come to the Sporticast for your scheduling or your Canadian
Do I
football.
care where they're playing? I don't care where they're playing. Orchard Park or East Rutherford, New Jersey?
I do not care either, but we will talk about what it means for the business later this week. He is Scott Soshnick on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams on Twitter at Novy_Williams.
Supposed to know the schedule, for God's sakes.
The show is produced by Aaron Greenewald and Keith Zanardi. Shout out to both of them. Sportico's digital media editor Cora Veltman would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast.
Marv Levy coaching the Bills still?
Which is the hub
Bruce Smith playing
of
tonight?
the
Thurman
Sportico
Thomas?
Media Network.